Hi everyone, this is Aisha and welcome to a new video of Read a Day Club. Since today is the last day of the year, 31st December, I thought that it would be a good way to end this year by talking about some of the best books I read in 2023. Now, these aren't books that released this year, these are just the books that I read and I really enjoyed. While I was getting the books out of my shelves, I just realized that the books that you enjoy the most are the most difficult to talk about. So anyway, I'm going to try. First book is Swann's Way, which is first volume, Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time. It's a portrait of both nostalgia and a bittersweet longing, especially when you talk about memories and having to reminisce through sensations. So in the case of Swann's Way, through Madeline dipped in tea. The book so easily became a part of me, or I of it. That makes sense. So the book is about Charles Swann and his relationships to love, to the women in his life, to his family, to the social circle that he's a part of. The writing is so poetic and fluid. It just sort of holds on to you. It soothes you. It has a very calming effect on you. Even though I enjoyed the first half of the book a lot more than the second half of the book, because he's walking you through his childhood memories in the first half of the book, and that in itself is so poetic, so vivid. It's definitely a contemplative read. I can see this book becoming a constant for me, one that I can keep going back to, also to delve deeper into the philosophical nuances of both time and love that Marcel Proust manages to evoke so beautifully. He thinks of time as this wide, terrifying abyss that, carries him from the past to the present into the future. Alright, so I think I have gone on and on about this book. I'll move on to the next one, and that is Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. Coetzee, I think I'm saying it correct. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but I'll stick with Coetzee. Now, I went into this book completely blind. I had no idea what this book is about. I want you to have that same experience, so I will not say much about the story. But what I will say is that it's quite a jarring read. One that takes its time to get under your skin. And if you're a sensitive reader, which I realized that I can be at times, it will definitely shift something in you. And the deeper I dove into why Coetzee chose to write such a story, the more hurt and angrier I felt. I read this book in such a frantic yet consciously aware manner. In a while, the organism will repair itself, and I, the ghost within it, will be my old self again. But the truth, he knows, is otherwise. His pleasure in living has been snuffed out, like a leaf on a stream, like a puffball on a breeze. He has begun to float toward his end. He sees it quite clearly, and it fills him with, the word will not go away, despair. The blood of life is leaving his body and despair is taking its place. Despair that is like a gas, odorless, tasteless, without nourishment. You breathe it in, your limbs relax, you cease to care, even at the moment when the steel touches your throat. Yes, it is a very gritty book. It's very grim at times too. The next book is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. I was quite surprised at myself for liking this book so much. I assumed it would feel dry, it would be wordy, but the book definitely proved me wrong. I now found the audiobook version of Moby Dick on Audible. And this isn't something that I do very often, but I was both listening to the audiobook and reading, which made my experience 100 times better. So Moby Dick is about a man and his obsession with whales, one white whale in particular. The book is just rife with symbolism. Through such a flawed character, Melville manages to paint a very existential portrait of the human condition and a character's pursuit of meaning in something that goes beyond his control, So it's as if through the narrative of following a white whale, you're trying to control the more violent, unpredictable and uncertain aspects of your life. So there's a lot of that in Moby Dick. And complementing Moby Dick is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Now, so it sort of complements the man versus nature theme of Moby Dick. What I think Heart of Darkness does even better is how Joseph Conrad manages to express and expose the darkness within humanity itself, explores very universal themes like the nature of morality, the metaphorical descent into the human psyche. So after you finish reading this book, it does leave a bitter taste for days after, because you're reading about a character breaking down and then trying to put all those pieces back together. And even though that this is such an internal and emotional experience, the way that Melville uses nature in order to portray such tragic psychological complexities is very moving. The next book is H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. Calling them weird is to underestimate what Lovecraft has managed to do, to be honest, because the book contains short stories of both cosmic and existential horror, many bizarre and ethereal elements all blended in. Never could have I imagined such philosophical and psychological depth from a horror book. The almost compulsive writing is very gritty. It's disturbing. I had a very similar experience when I read House of Leaves. Intelligent, incisive, and brutal in the way that it explores, more like exposes our flaws and defects and have them work against us, which is how most of the stories in this collection are narrated. Another book is Arthur Schnitzler's Dream Story. Now, I realized this when I was taking out the books from the shelves today, that there's a common string that runs through all these, the best books that I read this year, and that is that they are in some ways or the other an odyssey. With Dream Story, the odyssey, it's a nocturnal odyssey of which is both literal, because most of the important scenes in the book take place at night, and it's also metaphorical because Arthur Schnitzler really gives you a glimpse, a good portrait of just the dark, repressed, unconscious aspects of human psyche through the main character. It just reads like a fever dream, to be honest, the one that you don't want to wake up from, just because it's so fantastical and seductive, but also you don't want to keep on dreaming at the same time, because it just contradicts everything you are and can be in reality. Quite an immersive experience. The dream sequences in the book are so unforgettable. It very quickly becomes surreal and hypnotic, which is so fascinating because it is such a short read, barely even 100 pages. Now, the next book that I read right after I finished reading Dream Story was Hunger by Ngo Tham Son. Now, this story follows an unnamed protagonist, and it has a stream of consciousness narrative style. So right from the very first page, it becomes unsettling, it becomes raw, it becomes intimate, it is confessional almost, because you feel like, because the narrator is the character himself, it reads like a journal entry. You're reading about someone's emotional, physical, and mental breakdown, disintegration, and it can be really chaotic in moments, but also very comforting, which is ironic because it sort of put me out of my own mental headspace. The fact that this book is roughly based on the author's own life experiences makes it even more intense and memorable. Sort of like Watching Naked by Mike Leigh, which is one of my favorite films of all time. Now, very quickly before I end this video, and I realize that I have gone on for a very long time, longer than I had intended, but I very quickly want to mention some books that I would like to read next year. So starting with Eugene Thacker's Horrors of Philosophy trilogy. The series was recommended to me by Goodreads because I have read Gotti's The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. I think the book is here, yes. My sister is reading it currently, so yeah. This book, then Denial of Death.
Read it, man!
So that was her. So anyway, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, Denial of Death, and the most random person, and even A Season in Hell and Illuminations. In fact, even because I read The Call of Cthulhu, that book was recommended. And then another writer who I would really like to read more of next year is Raina Maria Rilke. And this is because I read both The Wanderer and The Madman by Khalil Gibran just a few days ago. And it just reminded me of Rilke in so many ways. They explore themes of love, one's attitude about life, death, solitude, the pursuit of meaning. Then we have Clarice Lispector's complete stories. Now, I have grown very fond of short stories over the last 2 to 3 years. Lispector's The Passion According to G.H. just blew me away. It relates so much to the complexities of human identity. Now, the next writer whose books I want to listen to actually is Oliver Sacks. So I read The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. This was actually one of my very first nonfiction reads, and I remember really enjoying it. So I really want to listen to his audiobooks. I found Awakenings, Seeing Voices, The Mind's Eye, and Hallucinations. Then next we have Franz Kafka. Now, through no effort of my own, I have been finding Kafka's letters, especially his letters to Milena, everywhere. Last book that I have on my radar is The Man Without Qualities. Now, it was reading War and Peace in 2022 for the first time, then reading Moby Dick this year, that I want to read another chunky book next year. So I want to keep up this ritual of mine of reading big books. This one is about an ex-soldier just sort of struggling with the limitations of society. And this is after the First World War. It is written that he's a veteran, a seducer, and a scientist, yet also a man without qualities, and therefore a brilliant and detached observer of his changing world. I mean, I can be a bit more ambitious and say that I would also like to read Ulysses by James Joyce this year, but let's not get carried away, or should I? Anyway, so thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my favorite reads of this year. Tell me your favorite reads of this year and which books you're looking forward to reading in 2024. This is Aisha from Read A Day Club, and I'll see you guys very soon.